Hello, Dr. Rebecca Ashery. How are you? Welcome.
Hi, Julie.
I'm so glad that we've met and that you're here making time in December of 2023 to be here with me on Julie in Conversation. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I didn't have the opportunity or pleasure to know you 6 months ago, but we got introduced through a mutual coach, awesome coach, Ann Kelly, close collaborator of mine, co-creator, and she was kind enough to introduce us to each other
Mhm.
back in, I don't know, was it 2, 3 months ago?
Yeah, yeah. October, I think. Yeah.
October. So we got to meet in the space of coaching, and I one of my focuses is my work is on mentor coaching, and so you were introduced to me to offering that space of mentor coaching, and in the process, I got to see and meet you. I mean, Anne told me how great you were, but I got to see it firsthand through your coaching that you were practicing and the client that you were bringing and just the wonderful space that you created.
You were a great mentor. So,
Thank you. It's a privilege to be able to do that and to be in that space. So can you tell us where you are located in this fine planet of ours and a little bit about yourself for those who are getting to meet you for the first time?
okay. So I am located in Potomac, Maryland, which is part of the DC area. So I'm just about 10 miles from DC, very close. Hop on the subway and you're there. And I am currently, my background is actually social work. I'm a social worker. I have a master's and a doctorate degree in social work. And I started out working for the federal government. And I did everything. I did program planning and development, I did research, I did policy, training. You did it, you name it, I did it. And I was also a supervisor. And when I was with the federal government, I got maybe a week's training as a supervisor, and that was it. You're left on your own. And all the executives were the ones who got the coaches and the special training.
Mm.
So I've been kind of on a soapbox that supervisors are the ones that really need training and coaching. And so when I completed my federal career, I did several things. I've done consulting. I opened up a private psychotherapy practice, but I also went and got a coaching certification from Rutgers University. And I coach supervisors and just anybody in the workplace who's having problems. So that's just a little bit about me.
Amazing. And when you say supervisors, can you elaborate on who these people are? What
Yeah,
what
they're
titles they hold?
supervisors, they can be managers, they can be managers. We talk, they're supervising other supervisors, or they can be frontline supervisors, they can be supervising 3 people, they can be supervising 20 people in the workplace.
And the
And
workplace,
anybody else who has a problem in the workplace.
right. But your specialty and your focus is in the workplace.
Yeah.
So for those people listening and tuning in, pay attention to Rebecca as she shares because this might be speaking exactly to you and what people might be needing, right? There's a lot of that need to fulfill. And also, I heard you say you're on your soapbox of how this is important and necessary. And a lot of people, I mean, I align or I've worked with and work for different coaching platforms online. And one of the go tos is how do we democratize coaching in the
Mhm.
workplace? Not just for the executives or senior level executives, but for everyone. But your specialty is for the supervisor, the executive at that level. Is that correct?
I don't call them, they're not called executives, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
These are supervisors, frontline supervisors. And the problem is, I want supervisors to start thinking of themselves as leaders.
Mm.
Mhm.
Where does the word executive fit in then?
The executives are way up on the top.
Okay.
They're in the C-suite, they're the CEO, they're the CFO. Those are the people that I call executives. And a lot of people want to coach executives, and the executives get the privilege of having a coach.
Right.
Right. But the supervisors on the first front lines usually don't get a coach. And I think that the workplace ought to start focusing on the frontline supervisors.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting to define executive because I think it's different for depending on who you're asking, right? Some people qualify executive as a supervisor or as a manager. I think it depends. But what I'm hearing from you is those aren't the people you're interested in coaching
Right, right,
because there's a reason and a need for the supervisors to get attention and to get the support because they're impacting so many people and they
right.
are often left out of this equation.
And they're on the front
Um,
line with the customer. They're the ones
yeah,
that usually deal with the whoever the customer is. And
right.
they can tell you what's wrong with the system, where the
Hmm.
system might be going awry.
Hmm. There's lots to say about that, right? Where it's going wrong, what's
Yeah,
going wrong.
yeah, that's right.
Um, I want to back up a little bit to know, I'm curious about, I don't think I've heard because, we've just been getting to know each other. What brought you to your interest and work in social work and
Oh,
in helping people,
okay.
supporting people?
I've just always wanted to help people. That's just something I've always wanted to do, was to be able to help people. And actually, ever since I was in the 8th grade, I wanted to be a social worker. I wanted to be able to help people. And I remember, of course, it was a long time ago. It was Thanksgiving, and the our 3rd grade class had a turkey and everything. We had all the we were giving, it wasn't a cooked turkey, but we had turkey and the trimmings, and we were giving it to a poor family. And they came to the school and got it, and they were so grateful. And I said, I really want to help people. I really want to be there and be there for people. And so that was kind of the beginning.
Wow, what a memorable moment and
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So you were born that way with the
Could almost say that. Yes.
are there any other moments that were pivotal, such as that informed your decision making in terms of what you would make out of your career and out of what you do?
Well, I think just, I started off kind of doing some volunteer work, working at a daycare center again for underprivileged kids, and just kind of helping them out, and then doing a little tutoring. So I did a lot of little things all along the way in terms of really trying to help people.
Can
And
you
of course, I
remember?
want to rescue and I want to change the world.
There's that piece
And I
too,
want
right?
to save the world, but of course, I can only take my little corner of the world.
And
So,
you do your part, and that matters.
mhm.
Were there people that you looked up to that like were sort of this beacon of possibility as you were growing up and choosing your vocation and how you would channel your values into work?
Actually, I'm not sure if there really was somebody. It was only when I really entered graduate school that I really had full support. I had my aunts or aunts had been through the depression, and they had been social working types during the depression, and they said, you're going to give all your money away. you know they gave up. It was horrible. It was a terrible time. Don't be a social worker. You're going to give all your money away. It's going to be really difficult. You should be it. And again, this was kind of way back. You should be a teacher instead. And I said, no, I want to be a social worker. So
Wow. And who would you say the majority of your clients? So there's your therapy, the work that you do as a psychotherapist,
yeah,
and then there's the work that you do as a coach.
Right.
And can you talk about how they intersect and how they also remain distinct?
Yeah, I have different clients actually. Well, I have some of this, they're similar, some are different, but usually the people I have in psychotherapy have relationship problems. They may have a relationship problem with their partner, a relationship problem with their family of origin. They have anxiety and depression,
Hmm.
whereas the coaching have issues around the workplace. And of course, often there's an intersection because the workplace is making them anxious and depressed.
Unfortunately,
um,
yeah.
yeah, there's that intersection there, but I try to keep them separate. And like I said, my coaching is really part of it is really a teaching and instruction. So I talk to supervisors about decision making, um, conflict, solving conflict, how to give feedback, developing SMART goals, um, all kinds of specific things that you need as a supervisor, whatever it is that they're looking at and they need. And
Mhm.
I have a specific protocol that we talk about, and then they go back and they try to implement. And then they come back and then we talk about what their implementation was like. Because the problem is you need that follow up. You can't just instruct and expect people to implement without the follow up that's there.
The accountability piece,
Yeah.
something that they're committing to.
Very important.
And then the supervisors that you work with, are they in the for-profit, nonprofit? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I work a lot in the nonprofit area, being because of social work background.
Yeah.
Is a lot of it's nonprofit, but I also do some for-profit. People are in for-profit organizations.
What is most meaningful to you about this work?
Well, I'm helping people, and I hope that they get something out of it. And I want them to be good supervisors. And if they want to get, let's say, promoted further up the chain, or they want another type of position,
Hmm.
that that background, that coaching is going to help them get there.
Hmm.
And if there's somebody in the it just in the workplace that I'm coaching, that I can make it better for them, and that they will feel more confident, more self-aware. And again, that they can either move up that career ladder, or maybe they can get something else. So
Hmm.
it's really helping people to function better in the workplace.
Um, one of the privileges and honors and great things about being a mentor coach, and also a coach trainer, but in this capacity is as you know, I get to listen in to a coaching session. And so it's a beautiful place to be, where I can, I get to hear what's happening between a coach and their client. And so the subject matter that you brought to me with your client was very meaningful, and it was just evident of your heart and what matters to you, in terms of the systems and affecting the systems positively through the individuals that you're working with. So um, just for those people who are listening that are feeling like, there's no way to affect the system, or I need somebody to help me affect the system, Rebecca is your person who can do that for you. I don't know if do you work mainly within the US with your clients? Do you have people internationally? I know as for therapy you can't, right? But for
Right.
coaching you can.
Coaching I can, and as of right now, I'm only doing US, but I welcome anybody internationally who wants to come.
What are some
More than
topics
welcome.
that people bring to you? Like, can you get more granular? Like, so people are listening, like, oh, I didn't know this was possible. Or I didn't know I can hire somebody like Rebecca. What would that look like in terms
Well, it
of like an
depends
issue?
what their issues are.
Yeah.
Sometimes leadership is one thing. Again,
Right.
I really emphasize that supervisors, that anybody, even a worker, can be a leader. So I
Yes.
talk a lot about leadership. Again, How do you make decisions? What's the decision-making process? You don't want to just jump on the bandwagon in terms of making a decision. Giving feedback. That's the one thing that often supervisors don't know how to do, is how
Mm-hmm.
do you give feedback properly? And supervising, and I'm sure you've heard this in coaching, supervising the person. How do you supervise the person, not just the problem?
Mm-hmm.
Creating that atmosphere to be open in terms of people being able to come to you as a supervisor with their problems. But one of the main things is self-awareness, being
Yeah.
self-aware as a supervisor and as a worker. So one of the things that we might find a lot is people filtering, what we call
Mm-hmm.
filtering. So filtering is when you have lots of positive things going on, but maybe there's one negative thing and you exaggerate the negative and you forget about all the positives. And so the negative becomes really, really big. So for example, a worker might maybe she's done a 10-page report and the supervisor says, this is a great report. You did a wonderful executive summary. You've done all these terrific charts. However, there are 2 paragraphs here, if you can just clarify them a little more. And the worker might go back and say, oh my gosh, this is terrible. My supervisor doesn't like me. She was so critical of me. I'm never going to get a promotion. She's never going to have me do a report again. And just getting yourself up into a tizzy about this.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, the supervisor could say, oh, she did a great report, but she made a mistake on these 2 paragraphs. I don't know whether I want to have her again, have her do
Mm.
the report again. I don't know whether I trust her again. So the filtering can go on both sides. And
Right.
so that's part of being self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
So there are what we call 15 styles of what we call unhelpful thinking. And so I do go over that and help supervisors, workers become more self-aware when these unhelpful thinking comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, you shared in reflecting on our conversation together, you talked about like various topics that we could delve into a little bit. And one of them that stood out, of course, was enhancing self-awareness, because that also shows up as, in coaching, right? We want to help support our clients in developing a self-awareness, becoming more aware. And I enjoyed this the unhelpful thinking styles that you presented, one being filtering, and then also you shared 2 others that maybe you wanted to touch on. The next one that I could identify with very strongly being catastrophizing.
yeah, I'm glad you pronounced that word correctly, because a lot of people don't pronounce it correctly. But if you just think of the word catastrophe and then you put catastrophizing on it. So
Yes.
catastrophizing goes on the what ifs. What
Right.
if? So just a regular example is one time had a psychotherapy client that was extremely anxious and she had to be to work on time. She could not be late, but she only lived 15 minutes away from work. But she would leave an hour ahead of time because she would say to herself, what if I get into an accident?
Wow.
What if the car breaks down? What if it starts to rain? What if I forget something and I have to go back? So she was full of what if anxiety. And so that often can happen again in the workplace when you have these what ifs. And it can really prevent you from moving ahead, because let's say a supervisor says, or the CEO is looking for somebody to work on a special committee. And the supervisor might say, well, what if I don't know it? What if I don't know the people? What if it's too much work? What if?
What if?
And, that can prevent you from volunteering in the workplace and that helps you to become known and get ahead. And so one of the things to do is when you start what ifing,
Yeah.
say, what's the evidence?
Hmm.
So what's the evidence my car is going to break down? Well, if you maintain it pretty well, it's not going to break down.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know people to volunteer for a committee, you're going to meet new people and have an interesting and new experience. So when you start what ifing, what's the evidence there? And a second thing is if a friend came to you with the same issue,
Hmm.
what would you tell the friend?
I'm writing this down.
Yeah, okay.
I've heard it a million times, but I'm like, this is what I needed to hear today.
Yeah.
Um, Catastrophizing is no stranger to me, as I just said before. That's why I could pronounce it so well, Rebecca.
Oh, okay.
So I'm also thinking about the shoulds, and I'm wondering if that's another. This is would you classify this under CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy?
Yes, this
Okay.
is all cognitive behavioral therapy. A great book to read is Feeling Good by
Mhm.
David Burns. Now he talks about it in terms of depression and anxiety, but actually it is for anybody. We
Yeah.
all do it in some way. And so we have a lot of shoulds. People have, especially in the workplace, I should be doing more. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. This should have been perfect. This should. And we are so consumed by all the shoulds that it we can't move. We get upset.
Yeah.
Or he should be doing that in the workplace, or he should have done this. And why didn't he or she do this? She should have spoken up. She should have written the report. She should have called me. She should have emailed instead of really taking a look at, what are your shoulds about? And
The
sometimes
shoulds though fall under, sorry to interrupt, fall under what unhelpful thinking pattern?
that's the shoulds.
That's oh,
There's
that's the
no
shoulds.
should.
That's
That's
its
its own.
own
That's
category.
a category, right?
Shoulds, ought tos, could haves.
Yeah, yeah. Let me see if I have a definition. Is
Is
you
there
have,
like a title for that? I
yeah,
think I need to classify it.
called shoulds. It's one
Shoulds.
of the 15 styles.
Okay.
And you get angry because you think somebody should be doing something, and maybe they're not doing it, or maybe they're doing it in a different way than you would do it.
It's
But
interesting it's called a style.
it's
I would,
mhm.
yeah. Like the fact that it's called a style, it almost feels like, well, it's something that I'm choosing to do, right? Like maybe?
Well, sometimes you do choose to do it. Sometimes you do it and you don't realize you're doing it, but other times you're choosing to do it. You're choosing to say, he should have done this. She
Right.
should have done that.
Or you could choose not to do it.
You could choose not to do it. Right. So one of the issues is what we call reframing.
Yeah.
So I'll just get back. An easy one is filtering. Instead of saying to yourself, oh my gosh, this is a terrible report. My supervisor criticized the two paragraphs. You can say, you reframe it and you can say, this was a pretty good report. I'm so happy my supervisor likes it. And yeah, I'll go ahead and correct these two paragraphs. I'll see what it's about. And then I'll make sure that the next time I won't do it. That's a
Right.
reframing. Same
Right.
thing with the supervisor. If the supervisor starts out saying, oh yeah, it was a great report, but look at these two paragraphs, she can say, this worker really did a good job. She really tried hard. Those two paragraphs were really inconsequential. We'll just correct them and that'll be it. So it's a reframing.
Mm. I think I need to use some reframing and the whatever antidote to shoulding is in my personal family life with the division of labor.
Mhm.
I'm like, he should have cooked the dinner. He should have, and then I need to reframe, right?
Mhm.
or I should have cooked the dinner. I don't know if you're familiar with Byron Katie. Are you familiar with Byron
A
Katie?
little bit,
Okay.
yes.
So there's a lot of CBT built into her work, and it's called the 9 Day School for the Work. I had the great opportunity to engage in that and to go and be there for 9 days in California. And there was a lot of reframing of my thoughts and one's thoughts. And I'm not going to go into the whole questioning of it, but it's always about turning it around. Like, he
Right.
should have. No, I should have, right? And what is the evidence? And what can you give your mind evidence? So, like you say, it is a choice that we have to do that work
Mhm.
in order to have greater peace, to
Yeah,
have greater results.
yeah. I often have my clients, first of all, they have to recognize that they're doing it. Often they don't recognize that that's what they're doing. So to keep a log
Right. That's the
and really
awareness piece,
start
right?
to recognize that that's what you're doing. And then after you keep a log and you start to be able to recognize what you're doing, then to be able to reframe. And
Yeah.
people think it has to be a positive reframe. It doesn't always have to be a positive reframe. It has to be a more realistic reframe. You know, that person should have emailed me right away. Well,
Yeah.
okay, they didn't email me right away, but they emailed me the next day.
Right.
Okay.
I like that more realistic reframe. It's
Yeah,
not like
the
this
realist.
toxic positivity, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
or idealizing what could be and it's not happening, which leads to greater disappointment or self-criticism or criticism of the other.
Mhm.
Okay, so um we've covered what was the first one? The filtering. See?
Filtering. Yeah.
It's like the negativity bias, right? It's like what we focus on what is wrong, what we did poorly, what they said. It's like when we are putting, let's say, art or work out into the world and we get a negative criticism or a bad review on Amazon or somewhere. It's like I'm listening, even there was like a million positive reviews, critiques that were positive. I'm focusing on that one person who said that negative remark, right?
Right, right. Mhm.
I'm sure you get a lot of that showing up with your clients. So filtering, catastrophizing. Then we talked about the shoulds, coulds, ought tos.
Mhm.
Um, and the antidote or the, I don't know what you call it, maybe that was the reframing, right? With the shoulds
Reframe.
and coulds. The
Yeah.
catastrophizing is what's the evidence? Asking if a friend came to us.
Mhm.
What would you say?
Yeah, and it's also reframing too.
It's
It's
also
just like
reframing.
the woman that, had to go to work an hour ahead of time. It's like, her being able to, what if the car breaks down? Well, I do maintenance on the car every 6 months. The car is in good shape. It's okay. That's a reframe.
Right. That's a reframe.
Hmm.
Um, I'm also curious about obviously under the root of this behavior or these thinking patterns
Hmm.
are these other areas of the mental state of an individual, which is what? Fear, anxiety, you said depression at times.
Anxiety, depression, but sometimes it's
It's just,
might not be any of it. It could
right.
just
It's just
be
the way the mind works
the way
in
the
this
mind is
person.
working. Yeah.
Um, yeah. And I was just thinking about something that I mean, for me also, it's the catastrophizing or some of these thought patterns also show up. Um, I could relate to it from anxiety or fear of moving out of a comfort zone, right? I need to stay safe.
Hmm.
And so if things feel safe or they're out of my control, then in come these thoughts, right? That keep
Right.
me safe, that are
Right.
supposedly um, in my best interest. But really, we need to be curious about them, right?
Right.
And question our thoughts
Right. And
and
this
what we're
is part of
believing.
self-awareness, developing that
Self-awareness.
self-awareness. And that's really one of the foundations that supervisors really need is developing that
Self-awareness.
awareness.
We all need it, supervisors or not, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But especially leaders, people who are impacting others.
Mhm.
And you talk about another, well, maybe we could just talk about another style because I find it really helpful and useful. Mind reading.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I can
Um,
read your mind, Rebecca. Can't I? Tell me about that one.
you got that one. Yeah. That one, I mean, the problem is you think you can read somebody's mind. You walk into a room and somebody looks up and they're busy talking to somebody. Somebody looks up and then they go ahead talking to someone, and you think, oh my gosh, they're talking about me.
Or, yeah,
They're not talking about you at all, but that's what you think.
right.
And oh, they're talking about me. Do I have
Yeah,
the dress on? Do I look
yeah.
okay? What did I say? And that can be, it really is not good, because what happens is you mind read somebody, you think you know what they're thinking, and then you act toward what you think they're thinking, and
Hmm.
they may not be thinking that at all.
Right.
And so that's a problem with mind reading.
Hmm.
And you think you can mind read your supervisor maybe thinks they can mind read the workers. And you
Right.
really, that's a part of communication. You
Yeah.
really have to clarify.
The word that's coming to mind is there's a lot of disrupting of our thought patterns, right?
Mhm.
Needing to disrupt the thoughts.
Yeah. Well, it's recognizing them first. You have to
First, recognizing.
recognize them and then reframe.
Yeah.
So the reframe is, yeah, I walked into this room. Yeah, everybody's just talking with each other. I need to go introduce myself.
Yeah. It's good. I like that. That feels way kinder.
Yeah.
Um, is there any other of the 15 that are striking you as relevant or important right now to bring up?
Well,
Or common? More
there
common?
are a lot. One of the things, which is a little bit more complicated, is polarized thinking.
Mm,
And
let's
that
hear about that.
is, I always say it's either this or that. That's polarized thinking. It's A or it's Z. And you don't look at all the different possibilities that you might have in the middle. And there might be a lot of different possibilities. For example, somebody goes on a job interview. I tell everybody, even if you don't think you're interested in the job, even if it's not, you don't think it's worth it, go on the interview, because number one, you get practice. But the other thing is, people say, I go on the job interview, I don't get it, I get disappointed. I'm either going to get it or I'm not going to get it. But sometimes you don't know. You're going to meet people on this job interview. Maybe if you look at what could happen in the middle, there might be other opportunities within that company that could be coming up that you might be qualified for.
Mm-hmm.
Or you might meet somebody that says, we can't use you at this company, but I know somebody at another company where it might be helpful for you. So
Mm-hmm.
you never know. So it's not either A or Z. There are possibilities in the middle, and we need to look at those possibilities that are in the middle for us.
I think
And
I need some
watch where,
cognitive behavioral therapy.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
when
I've had it over the
we're
years,
only
but
giving ourselves two choices, we usually
yeah.
have more than that.
And even just being able to see the in between. Obviously,
Right,
you are trained to do that. You do it, probably comes naturally as a result. But holding the possibilities for people,
right, right.
right, is so important. Even
Yeah,
that's not easy that for us to do for ourselves. I mean, I can speak for myself. I could do it for my clients. I don't have CBT training, and so I have other ways of doing it. But I'm just seeing how I know how powerful it is to have the skills as a therapist, social worker, and to also be a coach, and to have all the medley of
yeah.
offerings, right,
Mhm.
for your clients. So that's really powerful. When also you say polarized, of course, I go to yes, there's within the workspace or even within a family dynamic or within a partnership or in a
Right.
friendship, but there's like the political sphere,
Mhm.
which we're no
Right.
stranger to. And do people bring in these types of dilemmas to you? Do
Oh,
they
yeah.
show up?
Politics, I usually stay away from. I don't get
Yes.
involved in politics. But
But
yeah,
what would you say about polarized thinking? More system wide, because there's a lot of that happening, the binaries, right? And people just
yeah,
hanging out on either end.
yeah. And when I look at the people bringing in family dynamics, partner dynamics, workplace dynamics, is to think, well, where can you compromise? What's middle? What's in the middle?
Yeah.
What other possibilities might there be?
Yeah.
They're usually not just either or. There are usually a lot of other possibilities, and to really be able to look in the middle, because a lot of times people just think they have two choices. It's either this or it's that.
Yeah.
And they don't really think about, well, what other possibilities are there? And to
Hmm.
really start to think about those other possibilities.
And how do you get people to imagine or think about a possibility? Because it feels like if they're staring at a brick wall, there's nowhere to go, right? I can't move forward here.
Yeah. Well, usually take the situation and say, okay, think about it.
Yeah.
What other things can you do? What other possibilities might there be? And sometimes you have to kind of push them along. Well, what about this? Or what about that? Or have you thought about this? Have you
Yeah.
thought about that? And usually they'll come up with something, some other things.
Which is the beautiful thing about working with people in this kind of partnership, whether it's partnering as the coach or a therapist, is,
Mhm.
I mean, I can speak as a coach, it's partnering them to explore their own answers, right?
Right,
Because it's within us all. We have this ability. For some reason, we've become fixated or fixed within our thinking. But what I'm hearing you say is, and what I know to be true is, as soon as we bring awareness to it or shine a light on it, then we
right.
can dissolve what
Mhm,
is keeping us stuck or mired in the despair or confusion or inflexibility, right? There's a lot of inflexibility
mhm.
that can be
Yeah,
presented.
I think a lot of times there it is people are often inflexible, or they feel they're inflexible, or they're afraid to make that different move.
Mm. Anything else about these unhealthy thinking patterns? You didn't say unhealthy, I am. These unhelpful thinking patterns. Like we've mentioned four already. Um, do you want to stop it there? Or like, is there another one that's really common that you want to feel
Kind
like
of
would be?
just one that goes kind of through a lot of that is a lot of times people feel the need to be perfect.
Mm,
And you know, I always tell people, unless you're a pilot, a surgeon, or an engineer, you don't have to be perfect.
yeah.
And to really, I mean, some people will spend an hour answering an email when it really should just take 5 minutes, because they want to do it over and over and they want to make sure it's quote perfect.
Yeah.
So this kind of runs all the way through a lot of these, is the need to feel like they want to be perfect.
That's
So
interesting.
it's just a thought.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that thought. I'm thinking about some of the physicians that have showed up in the mentoring space where I get to mentor them in their sessions. And so it's interesting, you know, we all have to undo a certain way of being, right? When we're trying something else on. And so a tendency and a need for perfection in one area or one career will mean something different in another, and has to mean that way. And so how do we shift our or transform to show up as what's needed? And so it's also, interesting when you think about this. There's few, I mean, you could probably speak to this better than I could, but in terms of polarized thinking, there are few instances where we need to remain at A or need to remain at Z, right?
Yeah,
There's usually it's the middle ground, the nuance, the
right.
space of possibility, I would think, right?
Mhm.
Unless it comes to engineering or medicine or
Right.
flying an aircraft,
Uh-huh.
or certain levels of justice, I would imagine. I don't know. Um, yeah, the
Mhm.
space in between, right?
That's important. The flexibility,
The flexibility.
to be flexible. Yeah.
So need to be perfect, polarized thinking. catastrophizing, mind reading, filtering. Are we going to go through all 15 or what else?
No, no, we're
No, we're
not. That's
not.
it. That's
That
it.
what thinking is that of mine that wants to go through? I need to
That,
get this all down.
that's it.
That's it? You're drawing
That's
the
it
line?
for now.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
that's a lot. That's a lot
It is
to
a lot.
digest,
Yeah, it is.
you
I'll
know.
just have to get the book
Yeah,
I actually had the book many years ago. My physician doctor, he offered it to me, or he didn't offer it to me. He said, "Read this book, Julie. It'll help you." And I had it. I don't actually think I ever read it, and I probably gave it away. But here it is coming up again because this is, it's what we do all day, right? Is
yeah.
think, have
It's
many
been,
thousands of thoughts.
yeah, it's been on the market for a long time. So, make sure you get the
Edition.
latest edition. Yeah.
There have been no other like updated or other thinkers that you've liked or authors or
Well, he's kind of, I feel like he's the guru. He also
okay.
wrote a book, David Burns, on feeling great. That's kind of a follow-up to that.
Okay. Okay.
So that's, I think if you're reading, there are loads of books
Yeah,
out.
of course.
He was kind of the original guru.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Um Great. This is also good. Um so where what's the if you project like a few years into the future and you're looking back on what you've created, um what would you say, is most impactful for you? Um or has been most impactful for you?
Oh, well, obviously helping people
Helping people, yeah.
feel like they're moving. They're what we call movement. They've gone from one place to another place, so to speak, in terms of their learning, their functioning, their satisfaction with life. That's the most important thing. That
And
they feel that they've been helped.
and what do you want to be creating more of in the next few years at your work and within your business?
Well, I think, again, I have these modules that I've created in terms of, like I said, conflict, decision making, SMART goals, feedback. I mean, I've got 20 building blocks for
Wow.
supervisors, and I'll probably be building more and more. I started out with something like 8.
Wow.
Now I've got 20 building blocks for supervisors, and I'll probably be developing more supervisory building blocks.
Amazing. So ideally bringing these blocks and training. Do you train as well or do you work one-on-one now? I mean, I know you have in
I
the
do
past.
both. I
You
do
do
both.
both.
I have actually for new supervisors, nonprofit, I do give it through CEYOU.org. I do give supervisory trainings. I can give supervisory trainings also in anybody's workplace if they want it. And then
Mhm.
I do a lot of one-on-ones also.
Okay. Great.
Mhm.
Um, this metaphor, I don't know if you've heard this metaphor before, and I don't know the source, but I thank it, this person is. But it's something that I share a lot in coaching because the distinction, there's obviously a clear distinction, an important distinction between what coaching is and what it's not. And so often I make this distinction between therapy and coaching.
Mhm.
And this person said once that therapy is like archaeology, where you're digging, you're excavating, you're examining emotional patterns and wounding and healing from
Uh-huh.
there. Whereas coaching is like architecture, where you're working with what's present in the individual and designing for the future.
Mhm.
And I just thought that to be a beautiful metaphor for the distinctions between both. And you have the gift of being able to offer both.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
And
Congratulations.
that, yes, yes. I like the idea of offering both, but I also put that teaching and instructional piece in there
Yeah.
also.
Yeah. It's like would you call it psychoeducational or it's the educational or it's more executive educational, or I don't know.
I don't know whether I'd call it psychoeducational. I think I'd call it an um, educational coaching maybe.
Okay.
Um, and I don't know whether there's such a thing
Well,
as
it
educational
is.
coaching,
I like
but
it.
I think that it's important because, when you're a supervisor, you need tools,
Yeah.
and people don't have the tools. So you need the
Hmm.
self-awareness, you need the choices, but you need to have some tools,
Hmm. Yeah,
before
for
you can
sure.
fully develop yourself and develop your supervisory style.
Um, Maybe as we bring this to a close, I'm just curious how all these years, or maybe it's changed, but how do you maintain um, your own wellness and state of mental health when you offer the space to so many others? Do you
Mhm.
have any tools and tricks and tips? What do you
Well,
do? What's
what
your
do I
secret?
do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a massage, you know, get my nails done, hair done. Those are things that work for me. Uh,
Nice.
I take a weekend trip. Uh, Sometimes I take longer than a weekend trip. I take a couple weeks, but yeah, you have to treat yourself well. And so that's what I do.
And evidently, as I know this to be true, because we met in this way, but continuous learning, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a given. That's a
Yeah.
constantly continuous learning. Yeah.
And seeking and being curious. And it looks like you're, full steam ahead. I feel your passion and your desire to help, which is very admirable. And thank you, Rebecca, so much for spending this time with me here today.
Great. It was wonderful. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
It
Appreciate
was a pleasure. I love how just people, we get to be brought together in these ways. And so, yeah, thank you. And can you share maybe with people how they can find you? And yeah, if they want to hire you, they want to ask you a question about
Yeah,
how
you
they can
can
hire you.
just email me at Rebecca Ashery, PhD at Gmail. And it's REBECCA and then another AS like Sam, HERY, PhD. And that's all one word, Rebecca Ashery, PhD at gmail.com. And I have a small website that's managermaven.com.
Okay.
AGERMAVEN, managermaven.com. And you can see that website.
I want to go see it right now, actually. Is it the same? Does it bring you to the same page as RebeccaAshery.com?
No, Rebecca Ashery at Gmail. That's the email.
Okay, but I went to drashery.com.
Oh, that's the psychotherapy.
Okay, Maven or Manager
Managermaven.com.
Maven. I'm going to look at it right now. I
Yeah,
can't believe I
I
didn't
just
see
had it
this.
put up. It's not, it can use, maybe I'm filtering, but it can use a lot of improvement, but I just had it put up.
I'm glad that you caught your thinking style right there, Rebecca.
Yeah, right.
It's not showing up for me, but I'm happy to find out about it now.
Mhm.
Let me see if it's going to come up on my phone. Manage.
It better come up.
I know.
My
Or can you tell me about that title? Manager
Um,
Maven?
yeah, I wanted something with manager. I wanted something in, manager Maven. So
Oh, Manager Maven. I was thinking manage or Maven.
no,
I was
manager
like,
Maven.
Manager Maven. I got it
You
now.
got it now. Okay.
Okay, wait, let me see. I don't know what thinking style that was, but I think it was miscommunication. Okay, nice.
Mhm. Yeah,
Lovely.
I had it done through Fiverr, Fiverr.
Nice.
It's a website that has all different kinds of people who can do websites and other kinds of help there. And so that's where I had it done.
Great. It's a great site. I know
Mhm.
Fiverr. I'm glad to hear that
Oh,
that worked for
okay.
you.
Mhm.
But it's good to share
Yeah,
tools and resources.
right.
And do you work with up and coming therapists? Like, is that part of your practice in terms of supervision as a therapist?
I haven't actually worked as a supervisor of, I did a long time ago. I
Okay.
worked as a supervisor of other therapists. And I am certified as a supervisor in Maryland
Okay.
for therapists. But I haven't actually done anything lately
Okay.
for that.
Yeah. Nice. I mean, again, thank you for sharing Manager Maven, MANAGERMAVEN.com.
Mhm.
And I'll share more about your bio and it'll be available in the links and
Okay,
the notes
great,
below.
great.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Rebecca.
Thank you.
Wishing you the best.
Okay, thank you.